Right, hello everyone and welcome to my presentation on environmental psychology. Today I will be discussing environmental psychology and the importance of interdisciplinary collaborations to help evaluate research and really create an environmental impact, specifically help our ability to contribute to environmental problems. So what is environmental psychology and why is it important? Environmental psychology is a subdiscipline of psychological study, which looks specifically at the relationship between the environment and human behavior. So how the environment influences us and how we influence the environment. It's relatively new and was originally in response to an overall dissatisfaction with our environment. So this is how it was designed, planned, and built, which never really considered human behavior and how we move through those spaces. So it addressed how these environments actually did not suit us at all. But now environmental psychology looks more at the interaction between the environment and us. It also has a very big interest in helping environmental change and investigating environmental issues. So in 2016, Clayton and colleagues briefly reviewed the literature and understanding how psychology plays a role in environmental challenges. The psychological field holds a unique position in identifying and managing the human dimensions of environmental psychology. And what they really wanted to showcase was how the environmental problems we face is a human environment problem. So this looks into how humans' interactions directly impact the environment. They also look at the benefits and contributions which psychological study can contribute. So this is things like helping identify and manage environmentally responsible habits, decisions, and choices. Also the effects of environmental problems on psychological health, how to promote sustainable living and communities, and understanding risk perceptions. Psychology also has the ability to further their research in investigating environmental issues, test theories, and develop new theories to impact decision making. So this is really beneficial for us. This is because we have a unique perspective. So namely the influence of human behavior on environmental problems and solutions. So by teaming up with other disciplines with shared interests, we are able to more effectively pursue research problems, which will make more of an impact. They acknowledge that environmental psychology achieves this, but with more collaborations, more can be achieved. So this is why across all aspects of the paper, they stressed how important interdisciplinary collaboration could help with environmental problems. So is it really worth sourcing other disciplines in collaborative work? Many researchers believe there's huge benefits from working collaboratively. So although there may be challenges, Clayton and their colleagues said there is a need for a certain level of humility and willingness from the disciplines involved. Also trust and understanding that psychological contribution has strengths as well as weaknesses. But Santos and colleagues in 2021 suggests a collaboration between two subdisciplines of psychology, which have many overlapping behaviors that simultaneously promote environmental change and health. So is that worth it? Will it work? So not only is it possible, but it was actually theorized that these two subdisciplines, health psychology and environmental psychology, could actually have integrated could actually be integrated into environmental health psychology. So by integrating the two fields of psychology, it would address what they referred to as mitigation and adaptation behaviors related to environmental health. This is by Nguyen and his colleagues in 2021 as well. So by showing how the two fields can be integrated, it highlighted how human health is impacted to the environment. And by changing human behaviors, we could both help the environment and help overall human health. So now we see the little integrated approach Nguyen and colleagues suggested to achieve successfully, interdisciplinary action. So the concept they've presented, which is in the diagram up the top, shows how the environment, human health, and the person all interact through behaviors. So they listed two behaviors that are the main behaviors which are the way everything interacts, and through these behaviors, this is how we can promote, help, and interact with the whole thing. So they started with mitigation behaviors. These behaviors are behaviors that mitigate or reduce the impact people have on the environment. So although these behaviors in environmental psychology are typically done in the sole purpose of changing the impact the people have on the environment, the authors pointed out how they are also co-beneficial for health. So these co-beneficial behaviors simultaneously promote health and impact the environment. So a good example is riding a bike to work instead of taking your car, which can be good for exercise, but it also helps lower greenhouse gas emissions. It helps out air quality and fossil fuel consumptions. So similarly, you can also see how lowering meat consumption can ease the land demand for the current diet and lower greenhouse gas emissions. And you can actually do this up to 50% if you go vegetarian. So this helps the environment, but it also helps reduce the risk of coronary heart disease, cancer, type 2 diabetes, and overall mortality. So we can see how these behaviors help reduce the impact on the environment, but are also directly impacting human health as well. So it's simultaneous, it's co-beneficial behaviors. We also have our adaptation behaviors, and these behaviors are things which aim to prevent adverse impact on environmental issues on human health. And unlike mitigation behaviors, they affect human health in different timescales. So these behaviors, there are behaviors with immediate health effects, such as avoiding overexertion during heat waves. Behaviors also could have intermediate term effects, such as taking structured measures to ensure indoor temperatures are regulated during a heat wave. There are also behaviors with long-term health effects, such as migrating away from affected areas, like a flood area or a high risk, maybe fire area or something. And these behaviors are categorized as either information seeking, preparative action, or protective action. So information seeking means acquiring information about a person's risk of an environmental hazard and potential behavioral responses to certain hazards. So this is stuff like monitoring health hazards near you. Preparative actions are structural measures that are taken before the onset of an environmental hazard. This is aimed at reducing the probability of being affected. So this is something like weatherproofing your house for floods, for heat waves, etc. Protective actions are behaviors taken in response to an ongoing hazard, and it's aimed at reducing the impacts of that hazard. So things like relocating if you're near a flooded area, stuff like that. So we know in theory, these all sound like great suggestions, but could it be achieved? Could you actually, combine the two disciplines, and would it, kind of make an impact? So changing behavior in general is very difficult to achieve, but a recent study showcased how pro-environmental behavior is more likely to occur and be predicted when in self-concordance with the person. So this is meaning if something benefits the person in achieving their goals, usually in a hierarchy, the study says, and are in line with their values and identities, is more likely to be achieved. So just changing behavior to fit environmental change and kind of, do it out of that motivation, it's not always successful and it's not always sustainable. So they showed how if it's in self-concordance with the person and their goals, long-term goals, short-term goals, whatever, they're more likely to do the behavior over just because of their environmental ideologies or values. So this was particularly interesting because if we look at the proposed behaviors from our previous study, the behaviors helped the environment, but also helped human health. So if health was in self-concordance with the individual, it could strengthen the likelihood of the behavioral changes actually continuing and working, according to this study. So this shows how all the different disciplines in psychology can actually help, achieving environmental impact, because that's just how it is. And when we look at behavior, it's important to see how it works like how it works, because we want to change it, so we need to know how it works. And Miller and his colleagues actually suggested this computational model, and they see behavior as driven by two controllers. So behavior can either be value free, which is a habit, which is the hardest thing to break, or it can be model-based reinforcement learning or goal-directed behavior. So let's explain this. This is a little diagram that they did. So value-free behavior is about associations between a stimulus and action. So whereby the associations are strengthened each time that action is performed in response to the stimulus. So this is a habit. So you see, let's say you see your keys on the table, so you pick them up and you drive to work instead of walking to work or biking to work. In contrast, a goal-directed behavior is a behavior which follows a more reward or reinforcement learning approach. So this is whereby the action is done because of some goal in mind, and once the action is achieved, they are rewarded, therefore strengthening the want to do the action again. So this was quite interesting, because there has been much criticism on changing behavior. How do you even change behavior? Like the habit of driving to work. You see the keys, let's say according to this model, you see the keys, that's a stimulus, you react to it, and therefore you do the action. It's just a habit, you just keep doing it, and it just strengthens every time you do that habit. So we can see that the whole point of Unsworth and McNeil's study was to help figure out a way to promote and sustain pro-environmental behavior by using self-concordance as a motivator. The whole reason why they did it was because there was issues trying to keep behavior from working. And in Clayton and colleagues' paper, they posited how difficult it is to change behavior. They couldn't even get behavioral changes for pro-environmental behavior through financial incentives. It wasn't enough to sustain the behavior. It just didn't work. So we can see that much has to be considered when trying to impact environmental challenges with human behavior. So by taking in self-concordance research on behavior and even considering the habit research, we can see this interdisciplinary collaborations already there. It's already going on, which helps us achieve what we want. And when collaborating further by using this information into promoting health and environmental change, like Santos and Inuan suggested. So all of this is going together and they're all collaborating to help the change. So without habit research or without the self-concordance research for the behavior, we wouldn't get to where we are now. And just having environmental factors and psychology isn't really impacting enough specifically on like trying to get environmental change. So if you collaborate with other disciplines like health psychology, you can see that if you collaborate, you can, bring more self-concordance, let's say, into changing that behavior. So instead of it just being about environmental change, it can be about health. It can be about the goals towards your health, or it can be about, whatever you want to collaborate with at the moment. And that could really help everything out. So I'm going to say that interdisciplinary collaborations can help us achieve our goals. If you do it correctly, and we all have that. And most of the literature reviewed does suggest an interdisciplinary action. Environmental psychology is already kind of interdisciplinary, and they already need to collaborate with other disciplines. So the best way forward, for environmental psychology is to continue with that, but it does have its challenges. It's hard to do that. A lot of people don't like collaborating like that, but it's definitely worth the wait. So these are all of the references that I used. You can go look at them. If not, yeah, that's all for me today. Thank you for watching.